Well, welcome to the 700 Club. President Trump calls the controversy over the Epstein files a scam and a hoax cooked up by the Democrats.
The president is also shaming Republicans who want the files released, calling them stupid and foolish. George Thomas has the details.
President Trump isn't holding back, blasting those who buy into what he calls a hoax, even calling some of his own supporters weaklings for caring about the Epstein controversy. Their new scam is what we will forever call the Jeffrey Epstein hoax, and my past supporters have bought into this BS, hook, line, and sinker, the president wrote on Truth Social.
Mr. President, I know you want to.
And he didn't stop there. Here's the president's reaction from the Oval Office Wednesday.
It's all been a big hoax. It's perpetrated by the Democrats, and some stupid Republicans and foolish Republicans fall into the net, and so they try and do the Democrats' work.
The Epstein files are court records tied to Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking case that might reveal more about what he did and who else was involved. The Trump administration promised full release, but few details have come out, and Democrats accuse the administration of having something to hide. Some lawmakers want Ghislaine Maxwell, the woman convicted of helping Epstein recruit and abuse underage girls, to testify and shed more light on the case.
This is one of the worst human trafficking rings in American history, run by this scumbag. And I think the more we know about it, the more we get out there, the better it is.
More Republicans are joining calls for transparency.
You need to have all of the credible information released for the American people to make their decision. We trust the American people.
Attorney General Pam Bondi has released only limited files. Trump says she could share more if there's credible information. George Thomas, CBN News.
Well, CBN chief political analyst David Brody joins us now for more on this story. So the president's message, it's essentially from let's move on to now a full-scale attack. Why such a strong reaction?
Well, Gordon, he's upset. He believes that, the administration's been undefeated, if you will. In other words, got off to a great 6-month-plus start. And now he sees this as not just a sideshow, but a sideshow that won't go away. And he believes it's detracting and taking away from all of the great things this administration has done. And he's got a point on that. The problem here has always been the PR strategy, the strategy to kind of combat the MAGA faithful. See, here's what the White House has underestimated, that this is indeed important to MAGA writ large, specifically to about maybe 5 to 10% of MAGA. That's their line in the sand. Overall, MAGA still supports Trump, obviously. But the reason MAGA is not letting this go is because transparency and fighting against the deep state has been central to what MAGA has been all about. And you have the most transparent administration, according to MAGA, for these first 6+ months. And then ... wait a minute, what happened to transparency? And so it doesn't jive, it doesn't add up. That's why they're not dropping it. Not to mention, and this is really the very important part, the morality aspect of it. We're talking about sex trafficking here, minors. This has always been a moral crusade for many in MAGA, making sure there's justice. They want to see justice. And that's something that, the White House has had a real problem with as it relates to trying to figure out the PR strategy going forward on this.
Well, it just doesn't make any sense to me to try to cover up what is, I think, quite clearly a sex trafficking ring. You've got one person involved in it with a 20-year sentence. The whole tale just seems to be incredibly sordid. I mean, isn't putting all of this into the light the only way to disinfect it?
100%. And to be clear, I think we need to take a step back here and just look at this as to say, okay, we, the American people, may not have all the information here. You're basically going to, if you're in MAGA, you have the right people there. President Trump, Kash Patel at the FBI, Dan Bongino at the FBI, Pam Bondi to a degree at the DOJ. So you think you have the right people to expose all of this. So then the question becomes, well, then if they're saying that there's not much there, maybe they're right. This is something that MAGA, when I say MAGA, let me be clear. I'm talking about that 5, maybe 10% of MAGA. This is the line in the sand. This is their issue. They don't want to hear that. that maybe they're right. They believe there's a list. They believe there's lots of names. My sources are telling me that that may not actually be the case, that there are definitely some names out there, but any sort of list doesn't really exist. And I think that's what President Trump is trying to say, that the hoax part of this seems to be, the way President Trump is explaining it, is that there is no list. And that the MAGA has bought into this idea that there is an actual list. There is no list, is what many in the administration are saying. And so therefore, while there might be some names that are still need to be redacted, if you will, in FBI affidavits in court, there's not that big to-do list that everybody was waiting for. And I think that that's part of it. But they need to be more clear on it, and they haven't.
Well, isn't Pam Bondi part of the, I mean, if there's a hoax,
Right.
isn't she part of the hoax? I mean, you know, she said the list is on my desk. You can't get any clearer than that. And so now to come out and say, well, there isn't a list, well, then, you know, there's an obvious discrepancy between the two. So is she going to survive this? Is she going to make it through this controversy?
I think for now she will. My spidey sense on this, Gordon, tells me we can rack this tape up in about 6 months or so. We'll see. I don't think ultimately she will. I think eventually, I think President Trump doesn't want to have the major distraction, and it'd be more than a distraction, major problem of letting his attorney general go right now, just 6 months into his administration. Remember, Jeff Sessions, of course, was let go the first time around in his administration. I don't think he wants to see that happen. Do I think she'll survive for now? Yes. Do I think ultimately she'll survive? No, I don't think so. I think there's frustration for sure. Because look, Pam Bondi's big mistake here is, I mean, to use a kind of a Hollywood analogy, you're going to say George Clooney is going to show up at the premiere, and instead you get Dom DeLuise, womp womp. You know, it's like, you know, wait a minute. You can't promise Clooney and then not deliver Clooney at the premiere. And that's exactly what Bondi did on multiple occasions, not just with the MAGA influencers as it relates to those binders we saw them holding up saying, here come the Epstein files, but where she actually said, I've got the list right in front of me, and then she tried to backtrack that. So, yeah, I think she's in a bit of trouble for sure.
Well, what's the way forward here? Are we going to see some kind of congressional investigation? Do you think that's on the horizon? Do you think the FBI is going to act independently of the Attorney General? Do you think the administration's going to reverse course and say, let's disclose this? The horror of it goes on. I mean, one of the young girls involved in it committed suicide in Australia, and so the damage to the women, the girls, is ongoing, and we're going to continually hear that. And so at some point, you've got to, you know, disinfect it by full disclosure. So when's that going to happen, and how's it going to happen?
Well, I think it will happen. Obviously, the timing on this, who exactly knows, maybe in the next week or two. But my sense is that whether it be Pam Bondi, my guess is it will be Pam Bondi and others, who will have to come out and have some sort of rollout as to some of these unanswered questions. What she could do, Gordon, is call on those judges. They're the ones that have the power to, in essence, release the names of those that are in those redacted FBI affidavit files. The DOJ does not have that power, but the judges do. This is something Alan Dershowitz has talked about before, and that is true. I have confirmed that in terms of the judges being able to have that power. So that is something she could call on, and then, of course, some other things that she's going to have to do in that press conference to soothe MAGA. The other part of this would be a potential special counsel, not necessarily on Epstein, but more as we're starting to see a deep state counsel or special counsel to look into everything, including Epstein, things that have gone on in the last 10 years or so.
Well, there needs to be examination of the plea deal, the state court proceeding. All of these things, it just, frankly, from the outside, it looks like a huge mess. And my concern is the administration losing credibility. And will anything they do right now, is it going to be viewed as yet another cover-up? It just... I don't understand why. You would campaign on the issue, you would say the list is on my desk, you would do those things, and then here we are at the revelation moment and you pull it all back. It just really doesn't make any sense to me.
Incompetence, I think, at this point. And I think a lot of it rides with Pam Bondi and getting out ahead of the skis on that.
All right. Well, David, thanks for joining us. It looks like you're going to have an exciting year.
Oh, can't wait.
All right. Well, let's turn to the Middle East. Syrian forces begin pulling out of a contested border zone after Israeli airstrikes and the U.S. pressure. Chuck Holton reports from Jerusalem.
Syria's interim president announced a withdrawal of troops from Sueda on Wednesday, hoping to calm sectarian unrest and foreign backlash.
I specifically mentioned our Druze people, who are an integral part of the fabric of this nation. We assure you that protecting your rights and freedom is our priority.
Yesterday, more than 1,000 Israeli Druze breached the border fence, crossing into Syria to help fight for their brethren. At the same time, Israeli airstrikes hit regime targets in Damascus, including the Ministry of Defense and the presidential palace. A signal to the new regime that further violence in Sueda would not be tolerated. The Trump administration echoed that message Wednesday.
We are calling on the Syrian government to, in fact, withdraw their military in order to enable all sides to de-escalate and find a path forward.
Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, Prime Minister Netanyahu's government is again under strain. The ultra-Orthodox Shas party ordered all its ministers to resign from their government posts, though they remain part of the ruling coalition. The move weakens Netanyahu's control as far-right allies grow more dominant. And in Washington, President Trump hosted the Emir of Qatar at Mar-a-Lago. Earlier in the day, he made this cryptic comment.
Envoy Steve Witkoff. Steve, thank you very much. Thank you. Good job. And we have some good news on Gaza and good news on a couple of things that we're working on at a very high level.
Whether that's linked to hostage negotiations, a temporary ceasefire, or something else remains unclear, but sources say discussions are ongoing. From Jerusalem, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Well, let's continue to pray for the peace of Gaza. Let's pray for the peace of Jerusalem. It looks like the map of the Middle East is being redrawn. What's going to happen with Syria is sort of anybody's guess. Is that going to be balkanized and various regions drawn up, areas of control? But let's continue to pray for those hostages to finally be released, for Hamas to unconditionally surrender and give up the government of Gaza. There's no future for Gaza as long as Hamas is in control.
In today's turbulent times, we need the guidance of the Holy Spirit more than ever.
CBN presents Walking in the Spirit.
The Bible is very specific that we're to meditate on His Word day and night. And the purpose of that is to transform your thinking. So you're no longer thinking the human way, the worldly way. You're thinking in accordance with Scripture. And when you do that, you're walking in the power of God.
Call now or go to CBN.com.
A transgender school policy is once again drawing national attention to Northern Virginia. The case involves a locker room incident caught on cell phone video. It also includes allegations of religious discrimination. Senior Washington correspondent Tara Mergener reports.
The Loudoun County school system has certainly had its share of controversy, from mandating gender identity policies to a high-profile bathroom assault that made national headlines. Now repercussions over a locker room conversation and action by the board at the attention of the state attorney general and the feds.
This cell phone video captures a tense moment inside a Stonebridge High School locker room. Three boys appear surprised when a biological female student who identifies as a male records their private conversation on a cell phone.
The locker room video, it expresses just what any 10th grade boys would say. But we don't even know who says what in the video.
At the center of the debate, Policy 8040, adopted by the school board in 2021. It allows students to use restrooms and locker rooms that align with their gender identity. School policy also strictly bans recordings in these spaces.
I think there's boys across the entire country that feel like this and are terrified to speak up because look what happens.
While the transgender student received in-school suspension for the recording, the district also launched a Title IX investigation into the three boys. two Christians and a Muslim who say their objections are rooted in religious beliefs.
We believe that God made male and female, and there's no in between.
Title IX prohibits sex-based discrimination in federally funded schools. Violation can carry serious consequences for students.
It could really stigmatize them in their future careers and their college aspirations.
Excuse me?
The district's actions are sparking public backlash from both sides.
Excuse me, speakers should refrain from targeting Christians.
An angry crowd packed a recent school board meeting to speak out.
It is a travesty that 3 boys are under investigation right now for simply expressing unease about undressing in front of a girl.
Trans people are not dangerous. Assuming they are is.
This isn't the district's first high-profile controversy tied to gender policy.
New details tonight in 2 alleged sexual assaults inside 2 different Loudoun County schools.
LCPS also faced intense Title IX scrutiny in 2021, the same year as the adoption of Policy 8040. In that case, a male student wearing a skirt sexually assaulted a girl in a school restroom. Her parents filed a $30 million lawsuit against the division. After being transferred to another Loudoun school, he attacked another girl.
This is the exact same school division that covered up 2 sexual assaults of young women.
In this case, Governor Glenn Youngkin directed State Attorney General Jason Miyares to investigate the treatment of the boys and whether Loudoun County schools violated their civil rights.
The idea that they would weaponize this against 3 students for just stating basic biological fact, and just that they were uncomfortable in a locker room, it really shows this potential slippery slope.
The report found LCPS launched a retaliatory Title IX investigation and appears to be punishing those who hold and express faith-based views.
And they were essentially told, be quiet, shut up, don't speak, just comply.
So you've also referred this case to the feds.
They have taken this over. Now they have their own investigation.
The findings by the U.S. Departments of Education and Justice could reshape how schools implement gender-related policies in Virginia and beyond.
If these boys can be found guilty of a Title IX violation and sexual harassment simply for questioning why there's a girl in their locker room, it means that can happen to any student who does the same anywhere in America.
An LCPS spokesman declined our request for an interview, although the school system's website states in part that it would not investigate or discipline students based on their personal opinions, thoughts, or beliefs, provided those expressions do not violate policies prohibiting hate speech, discriminatory language, threats, or other forms of harmful or disruptive conduct. Although the division has dropped the sexual harassment charge against the Muslim student, stating his actions didn't meet the legal standard, it filed new sex-based discrimination charges against the 2 Christian students.
All 3 boys received a letter with these same alleged facts. So it just really doesn't add up.
If they don't have any solid evidence that these boys did anything wrong, they should just drop the case and move on.
The case in Loudoun isn't an isolated incident. Similar gender identity and religious battles are unfolding nationwide. From Maryland parents suing over LGBTQ curricula to pronoun disputes in Texas and bathroom policy clashes in California.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and only ladies and gentlemen it is and shall always be.
Loudoun could become a pivotal test case in defining the limits of how public schools protect civil rights without infringing on religious freedom.
What we're trying to do is just bring back common sense into the educational system.
Depending on the outcome of the federal investigation into potential Title IX violations, further actions could include disciplinary action against Loudoun County school officials, federal sanctions, or lawsuits challenging the district's policies or handling of the case. In Loudoun County, Virginia, I'm Tara Mergener, CBN News.
None of this case makes any sense to me. Number one, you shouldn't have a recording device in a locker room. That shouldn't be. So was there some kind of intentional provocation, and was that designed to trigger this investigation? Then you just have boys saying, well, yeah, a girl should not be in our locker room. That's kind of a normal reaction. So yes, common sense. But then you dismiss the charges against the Muslim student and you keep the charges against the Christian students. Well, that seems like a discrimination in and of itself. The power to investigate is the power to destroy. In the American Revolution, it was the power to tax. In our current surveillance state, this, this woke cancel culture we're in, it's the power to investigate. And what's going to happen to these two young men as they go through life? Are they forever going to be tarnished with this? It makes no sense. I do not understand a school system that wants to launch an investigation based on what was in the clip. It doesn't make any sense to me. But here's something that does make sense. All of this really goes back to the Supreme Court, and there was a very interesting ruling they had. And it didn't apply to schools, it applied to employment and discrimination in employment. There was a funeral home. The funeral home had a male employee who was transitioning, and he would show up to funerals in a dress, but having a full beard. And that caused families of doing funerals and mourning their loved ones discomfort. They didn't like that, and so the funeral home was losing business. The funeral home, the Supreme Court said the funeral home could not fire that employee, that would be now sex discrimination under the civil rights laws. So you look at that definition, and is it any wonder that we're seeing this kind of confusion in our school system? The Supreme Court needs to say enough of this. Our Department of Justice is probably going to weigh in enough of this. I'm very grateful that our Attorney General here in Virginia is saying, let's have common sense here. But it's just, we've gone crazy as a culture, and it really doesn't make any sense. Well, Charlie Watkins had to steel himself for a difficult conversation. He was going to talk to a true warrior, a submarine commander during the Cold War who dealt with some of the biggest challenges that faced our nation. To make the conversation even harder, this imposing man also happened to be Charlie's father.
A Naval Academy grad, Charlie Watkins served as a nuclear officer on a Navy cruiser. Years later, he transitioned to the business world and now is the CEO of 2 companies. Charlie's true passion in life is to equip men to thrive as godly husbands, fathers, and leaders. With his book, Throw No Rocks, Charlie offers wisdom from years of experience on how to achieve those very goals.
Well, Charlie Watkins is here with us now, and we've teased the meeting. What happened with your father?
Well, thank you for having me. It was a great day, but a terrifying day. And I rehearsed my speech all the way up Route 95 and 64. And I greeted my father, and I went in, and I said, Dad, I'm here to ask you to forgive me for my bad attitude I've had towards you. And I'm sorry. And he got a little emotional. And he said, as he composed himself, he said, yes, of course. And then he looked at me and said something I'll never forget the rest of my life. He said, Charlie, this is a good thing you've done today. And I got up, hugged my parents, and drove back to Virginia Beach, where I was living at the time, and with my 2 young children and my beautiful wife, and our lives changed. It was a breakthrough. It was holding me back. It really was a new era that forgiveness had ushered in with my new life in Christ, and I've only been a Christian for a couple of years.
Well, I was raised by a Marine, so I've got a little sense of what happened to you as you were growing up that put that in you.
Well, we moved a lot, and mostly my dad was just gone. And
submarines are hard.
Submarines are hard. And
very long deployment.
Long deployments, and it was the height of the Cold War.
Yeah.
No communication. 1 letter every 6 months. 1 letter. We'd get a letter. It'd be in Japan, and then he'd put letters off because there was no communication at those times. And I just grew lost. I was angry. I didn't know how to raise myself. I was one of 6 kids. My mother was busy as could be, and always waiting for life to sort of get started, and then we move again, and then you break in, you find your pathway, maybe through sports or something. But I just didn't know how to grow up. I didn't know how to make my life work. And I just turned my anger towards him, and I got mad at him. And I didn't express it because I was too intimidated by him, but I kept it all in here. And as much as I wanted the affirmation and approval from my dad, I really was still angry with him.
But you were still succeeding. I mean, Naval Academy is really hard to get into, and you still made it. So what was driving that?
Well, these are good questions. I think what was driving that was us seeking my dad's approval. And I went to the University of Texas for a year, and my father said, stay down there, do something peaceful. There were a lot of Naval Academy people in my family. He said, go into engineering, go into business, go into law. So I was down there for about a semester, and I realized I want to go to the Naval Academy. And I called him, and he said, you don't want to go to the Naval Academy, Charlie? You're not going to like it. I said, oh, I'm going to love it, Dad. But I was really seeking his approval, and I thought maybe if I could do what he did, you know, this is the way a young mind thinks, it's immature and needy, then I'll be happy. I'll be affirmed. And I went to the Naval Academy. I did fine there. I mean, I was too frightened not to do well. It wouldn't be a place I could ever leave, because leaving would be quitting. And so I did fine at the Naval Academy. I did well, went into nuclear power afterwards, which is an elite group.
That's an elite, yeah. I mean, you did more than well.
Yeah, we did, and so all that was true, and this breakthrough that occurred right after I left the Navy was a real launching point for me to begin to put a lot of pieces in place. So yes, it didn't bring me to non-success, but my motivation was striving for approval. There's no question about it.
Okay. What caused you to leave that? Because you do have to leave that.
Yeah.
And what got you to that point where that sort of, why am I looking for man's approval? What broke that in you?
Well, I started to go to church, and I had come to Christ through the ship's doctor on the cruiser I was on, and he was a remarkable man. And I was hungry for new things from the Lord, and Blythe and I stumbled into a beautiful charismatic church in this area. And I was raised a Roman Catholic, Blythe was raised Episcopalian, and we said, let's try something different. And literally the Lord just led us there. We didn't do any research. There was no Google at the time, or ChatGPT. And we stumbled in there, and there were all these wonderful teachings in the Sunday school, and you would know many of the names because there was Dave Gyertson was there, and all these wonderful guys were there, and men and women. And I started to put these things together, and they started talking to you about identity and spiritual authority and being under authority, and these things just began to be soaked in by my heart, and I was taught truth, and I was living under a different narrative, a narrative about unforgiveness and anger, and it was somebody else's fault. It was my dad's fault, and I was mad at him, and so that breakthrough, which occurred when those two people laid hands on me, and I'd never seen before or since. And that woman said, you need to go to your father, and you need to ask him to forgive you. It got my attention because I knew she didn't know.
You left that part of the story out. So you're in a church, and you go forward for prayer, and they lay hands on you at an altar, and she says prophetically over you, you need to go forgive your father.
Out of her mouth, the first words, after she said, what's your name? And I said, my name is Charlie. The man had been speaking in tongues. I didn't know what it was at that time. I wasn't uncomfortable. I didn't really know why I wasn't uncomfortable. I didn't understand what he said. He got quiet. She's over on this shoulder. She looks at me and she says, what's your name? I said, Charlie. She said, Charlie, you need to go to your father. You need to ask him to forgive you. And if you do, God is promising to restore to you the years.
Wow.
The locusts have eaten. And then she began to tell me things about my life that no one could have known except someone who had the inside scoop. And then she finished with these instructions, and she said, when you go to your father, throw no rocks. And I knew exactly what she meant. You remember that was a phrase that was more common then.
Yeah.
It meant own your own stuff. Don't try to extract an apology from him. This is not about that. This is about you asking him to forgive you for your attitude. And it was a holy mission. It took on a big meaning because of the way the Lord had delivered it in this dramatic fashion, which was very new to me. And so miraculously, my father had an opening in his schedule for an hour and a half on the upcoming Saturday afternoon. You just have to realize his schedule was booked 6 or 8 months in advance, all the way down to the minutes. He was all over the world. He was never available. He said, really? He's talking to my mother in the background. Sheila, that was my mom's name. They canceled? Charlie, I'm available Saturday afternoon at 1:30 if you can be here. I can be there, Dad. All right, bye. And that's how I drove up that day. But the trick was, and a lot of people ask me this question, they say, how did you do that? And I always have to remember to tell them one thing. It was the prophetic word that got my attention, but I'd already been taught to forgive. Because if I'd gone in there having not yet forgiven, that could have turned into a fight. And I had already forgiven him. So I only needed to get him
to forgive you.
Me.
Yeah, for your attitude. And, I imagine a boulder just fell off of your shoulders and you walked into something really incredible. What was the transformation like? You know, I can see it in your countenance. What was the transformation like for everyone around you?
I can only describe it as, even in retrospect, miraculous. The Bible came alive to me. I memorized scripture verses easily. I began to see things that others didn't see in my work life, and I began to be promoted. My marriage changed because I finally established that point of the affirmed son. Now, we weren't fishing buddies, but he's still the chief of naval operations. But there was a new level of respect, and I had gotten enough. And with Jesus, my marriage changed, my relationship with my kids changed, my whole view of authority changed. And I got this peace where I didn't have before. I wasn't striving so much anymore. I didn't have so much to prove. And God had just done it. And I didn't have all the theological basis for it. I didn't have all the rules figured out. All I know is she said, go, don't throw any rocks. I went, we prayed, and God did it. And it was the launching point really for the rest of my career. And that stuff I didn't even know that he was doing then. He was putting in place, as I say in the book, a multi-generational change in a line in the sand with the blood of Jesus that changed my family. You know, eliminated the spirit of criticism. It was a critical environment I grew up in, a very high performance kind of family where expectations, even unsaid, were very high. And I'm sure you can relate to this. And I didn't feel like I measured up. You know, people, you say, well, you went to the Naval Academy. That's a hard place to get into. Yeah, you went to nuclear power school. I didn't feel that way about myself. I still felt...
It wasn't enough.
It wasn't enough. I still felt like a B student.
Yeah. Well, we were supposed to talk about your book, Throw No Rocks. So you've taken this whole experience and now it's transformed everything about how you conduct business, how you live your life, how it's revitalized your marriage, and you know, just the total transformation. We're out of time, but the book is called Throw No Rocks, A Man's Guide to Success Through Partnership with God. And if you're struggling with unforgiveness, and particularly with a family member, I know that sometimes that can be very hard. I like to encourage people, if you didn't know a father, if you didn't have parents in your life, you can always ask your Heavenly Father to come in and say, could you reparent me? Could you show me the way? And if you're having trouble forgiving, we've got plenty of resources for you, the scriptures that'll walk you through. Forgiveness is a process. It's not a one and done. Sometimes you've got memories that keep coming back. When they do, you've got to forgive again and again until you get free from it. But you can see from Charlie's face, the transformation is absolutely worth it. And the advice he gives in this book's absolutely worth it. Throw No Rocks. It's available nationwide. Charlie, thank you for that story. That's really incredible. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome back to the 700 Club for this CBN News break. The Senate passed a bill approving President Trump's request to claw back $9 billion in government spending. It defunds the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which includes PBS and NPR. It also cuts some global aid programs. The bill passed 51-48, with Republican Senators Lisa Murkowski of Alaska and Maine's Susan Collins voting against it. It now goes back to the House for final approval. Wicked weather continues to assault the U.S., multiple tornadoes touching down in the Midwest. In New Orleans, people are filling sandbags as a tropical storm hovers off the Gulf Coast. It could drop up to 10 inches of rain. The Northeast bracing for more flash floods as storms bring heavy rain. In New Jersey, one man died and more than a dozen were injured when lightning struck an archery range. It's the second death by lightning in the state this week. You can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com.
In India, a boy named Shivam suffered from a congenital condition, and as he grew, his pain was compounded by shame and humiliation.
Ever since he was born, Shivam faced various problems because of his club feet. As he got older, the pain increased.
Even walking was a struggle for me. Every step felt like a challenge. When I tried to play or run, my feet would hurt so much.
He would often fall while walking. It broke my heart to see him like this.
Kids teased me. They called me names. It made me so angry and sad. I kept begging my dad, please do something. Please make my feet normal.
I had no money to pay for a surgery. I tried everything, thinking, searching, asking, but there was no solution.
Then Shivam's father heard about an Operation Blessing medical camp that had arrived near their village.
That day changed everything. They listened to my son's story and connected us to a partner hospital. They assured us the surgery would be free of charge. I could not believe it. Help had finally arrived.
My feet are straight now. I can run, play cricket, and laugh with my friends. No one makes fun of me anymore. I feel so happy.
I can't express how grateful I am. Seeing him walk and run like other children, it's like a dream come true.
I can do everything by myself now. I feel free, like a bird soaring in the sky, without pain or fear of falling. Thank you so much to everyone who made this possible.
That's you. If you're a 700 Club partner, we want to say thank you to you. I love these stories because it's one thing to say, well, I know this organization is good and they do good things, and so I'm going to support it. This is just one individual life, but one of thousands that you have touched if you're a 700 Club member. Hope comes alive. There was no hope for this little boy. His dad could not make it happen, and then God sends this medical team to his area. Something remarkable had never happened before, and this little boy is given free surgery. We say thank you to those of you who partner with us. If you haven't done that yet, do it today. 65 cents a day, $20 a month makes you a 700 Club member. Here are your other options, though. That second line is the next level, 700 Club Gold. It's $40 a month. You can also join 1000 Club at $84 a month or become a 2500 Club member at $209 a month. And then our founders, $417 a month. Ask God what he'd have you to do. Then call that toll-free number, 1-800-700-7000. Just say, I want to join the 700 Club. We've got a great gift, Walking in the Spirit. It's yours when you call. A big house, a glamorous life, and a shiny new Corvette. Angela Thorne had the chance to get all that and more. There was just one catch. She had to become a stripper.
It was just like deep humiliation. And this thought of people seeing that shame, like just utter embarrassment.
In 2010, 20-year-old Angela Thorne had desperately been searching for love and feeling the worth she had once felt when she was a child.
I knew nothing but love, you know, in that sense, and the kind of love that I feel like we were designed to experience.
Although she grew up in church and once had a deep relationship with God and her family, her parents got divorced. At just 10 years old, she struggled to make peace with what happened and began to search for ways to numb the pain.
I didn't know how to heal from that or how to release it, none of that. And so what ended up happening around the age of 10 is I started seeking out like the bad crowd, if you will. Like I had this sense of this urgency to be rebellious. It gave me this rush that numbed that pain.
She fell into the party scene at just 11 years old. Drugs, alcohol, and sex quickly became her new normal.
Even though it wasn't a good thing, I felt in control, even though I was completely out of control.
She lived this lifestyle all the way through her teenage years. Not long after graduating high school, Angela left home and moved into a drug house with the man she was dating at the time. She started working as a bartender, but soon realized she wanted more for her life. One night, while at a strip club with her boyfriend, a stripper approached her about working at the club.
She came and picked me up in her Corvette. Her lifestyle looked so lavish. She had this big house to herself, and she's just really making her lifestyle look glamorous and essentially telling me I could have all of this too.
Angela began working at the strip club, but realized that she was disillusioned with the reality of life as a stripper.
It was just like deep humiliation. And this thought of people seeing that shame, like just utter embarrassment.
After 3 years as a stripper, Angela then found herself pregnant and alone at the age of 22. She wanted things to be different for her and her daughter, so she left the sex industry and went back to bartending, where she eventually met Derek, another bartender who she connected with.
I would say it wasn't love at first sight, but it was like, this guy's different. And there was a moment where he took my glasses off and like looked me in my eyes and told me how beautiful I was. And I had never experienced that before. It was the first interaction I had with a man that was respectable and honorable and kind. And it literally took that for me to shift how I thought about myself.
Derek and Angela dated for 3 years before they got married in 2017. Then, at 27 years old, with her husband and 2 kids, Angela was starting to get the life she had always wanted. That is until the biological father of her first daughter returned and demanded full custody. She lost the custody battle and became fueled with anger and disappointment. She went to bed that night and had a dream she never expected to have.
I woke up that morning with this deep conviction to make amends with her biological father and we have to make this work. I almost was seeing him as Christ does, like her father, and I had like a tenderness towards him. It was weird, and I say it that way because it was like not that. I had hatred. I had deep hatred, and just the night before, and also in the midst of all that, I was like, we need to go back to church.
Angela and her family immediately started attending church and gave their lives to the Lord.
My heart was just shifting, and surely enough, we started making amends with her biological father, and that's when we started going to the church that we got married in. I started leading worship, which I hadn't done prior, so it was like finding a new space to release and just be in the presence of God, and that's where the healing journey started for our whole family. We all attended together. That was the first step. I would say I fell in love and I fully surrendered my life.
Today, Angela and Derek are continuing to make God their priority. They received joint custody of her first daughter, and she was able to forgive her parents. Through her ministry, Angela encourages other women to trust that God will bring redemption and healing to their circumstances.
God is with you, and he wants nothing and desires nothing else but for you to just give it to him so he can do what he does. And that's transform us, that's cleanse us and make us new.
The Bible says God knew us before we were ever formed in our mother's wombs. We came with intention into this world, and we came with God desiring us to become his, to be identified as his, children of the living God. And then there's the enemy of God, whose greatest joy comes from besmirching that image, from saying, that's not who you are. You know, it all started way back in the garden. Nothing has changed much. Did God really say, oh no, you could be like him. You could be more than you are? He didn't mean that. You know, there are things that happen to us in our lives when we're children, and we can't control those things. In this scenario, Angela's parents get divorced. It shakes her world. It rocks her understanding. She's not mature in her faith in the Lord. And then the temptations start coming. And what the enemy is doing in your life and mine is trying to rob us of the identity of who we are as God's kids, God's children, God's people. And it happens with all kinds of things and ultimately brings us to a point of shame. We become disgusted with ourselves. In my own life, I often think, I know who I am without Jesus, and I'm not going back there. Now, I don't know where you are today in your life, but I know things have happened to you because that's the way it is here. We're on a journey. We're on a journey from where we came from to where we're created to go, and along the way, our destination is ours to make, our choice. God doesn't want anybody to be kept apart from him. He doesn't do that. We do that by the choices that we make. But here's the great news. It's why they call him the Redeemer. It doesn't matter what's been done to you, where you've been, how you feel, all the identity crisis you have. It's never, ever, ever too late to come back to the Father heart of God. The creator of the universe waits for you. What are you going to do with that today? Dear friend, I mean, this isn't about our today, whether we're happy, and this is about eternity for you. What are you going to do with that invitation? You can wallow in your shame, you can wallow in your lostness, you can blame other people and wallow in unforgiveness. Or today, you can start the journey. You can say, yes, God. Yes, God, I choose you. Show me who I am in you. Show me what you created me to be. And friend, if you have unforgiveness, you need to go take care of that. Just like our guest talked about today, just like Angela talked about, when we forgive, the windows of heaven open over us and we find out not just who he is, but who we are. Don't miss that. If you need prayer, call our toll-free number. It's 1-800-700-7000. Here's a word from God for you. Psalm 46. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. God bless you.